Order in the podcast. Order in the podcast. You all may be seated. This is court case 616, The People versus Spider-Man. Tonight, we tackle a marvelous mystery. Throughout time, many have worn the mask and made sure that with great power comes great responsibility. But who is the best? Four passionate debaters here stand before me to answer that exact questions. As your judge, I will keep the peace, but the ultimate power does not belong to me. No, no, no. Listeners, you are the jury. Your votes will decide the final verdict. Debaters, approach the bench, present your opening statement. And we will start with debater number one. Please come to the bench, introduce yourself, and who will you be defending?
Before we start, I'd love to request a sidebar, Your Honor.
Of course. What's on your mind?
I have my opening statements and documents all ready to go to defend this case, but I'm just not sure I'll be able to make it through the entire court.
What are you saying? You don't feel confident in your case?
Confidence is no issue, Your Honor. I'm lacking the energy to stay focused and awake, that's all.
Your energy levels are low. That's it. Well, lucky for you, I actually have something over at my bench.
I appreciate the gesture, Your Honor. May I ask what you're offering?
Of course, it's this little thing called W Energy.
W Energy?
Precise. It gives me all the energy I need for court cases, movie marathons, and even judicial stuff. It has no artificial colors or dyes, no fillers, and no BS.
Where can I get this? That's amazing.
It truly is amazing. You can go to their website after the case, of course, and I'll even throw in a promo code for you to save 10% at checkout. Just use code TQC when checking out.
I will. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very well. Return to your table. We will now proceed with the matter of the court.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Steven, and I'm going to be defending Tobey Maguire as the best Spider-Man today.
Thank you, Stephen. You may be seated. Debater number two, please come to the bench and introduce yourself and who you will be defending.
Hello, my name is Chase, part of the SempShow, and I will be debating Andrew Garfield as the best Spider-Man we have ever seen.
Interesting. Chase, can you further explain and tell us a little bit about yourself? I know Steven. I've seen him in this courtroom before. But can you tell everyone who you are and give us a little bit of a, synopsis on yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I am 24 years old in the tri-state area. And yeah, I'm part of the co-owner of the SempShow podcast and the TikTok account where we post anything Marvel, Star Wars, just movie-related content in general. Yeah, we're starting to hit our stride, I believe. We interviewed Blair James, who's the costume designer of the movie Obsession, which was a obvious big hit. So that was awesome. And yeah, just looking to keep that train going, but super happy to be here.
We are glad that you are here, Chase. Thank you for joining us. You may be seated. Defendant number three.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm the other co-host of the Semp Show, and today I will be defending Tom Holland and why he is the best Spider-Man of all time.
And just like Chase, you are new to this, into this courtroom. Can you...
Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Alex, part of the Semp Show, where we do a lot of film and stuff. Chase kind of broke that down. So, I'll just kind of say that I am excited to be here and been kind of on the content creation side of things with Marvel and all that pop culture stuff for about 7 years now. So on and off, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm just excited to win this one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love the confidence. You may be seated. And finally, number four, can you please introduce yourself and who you will be defending?
Yeah, this is Bruce, and I'm going to be presenting the case of Shamik Moore as as our Miles Morales, the best Spider-Man ever.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. All right, now that we know who's who, let's begin. I will start with Steven. Can you please tell us your point as to why Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man? You may begin.
Thank you, everybody, and I appreciate you, gentlemen, joining the show. I did come prepared with a statement. So, ladies and gentlemen, true believers, and Spider Man fans everywhere, today I stand before you not merely to defend a Spider Man, but to champion the Spider Man. Now, let me be clear, every actor who has worn the mask has brought something special to the role. This isn't a case built on tearing down any other Spider Man, rather, it's a celebration of the one, in my eyes, best embodies the heart and soul of Peter Parker. Because when I think of Spider Man, I don't think of billion-dollar technology, multiversal adventures, or flashy gadgets. I think of sacrifice. I think of responsibility. I think of a young man trying to pay the rent, keep his relationships together, and still finding the strength to put on the mask and save complete strangers. I think of a hero who suffers, who stumbles, who loses, and yet always gets back up. I think of a train stopped by sheer willpower. I think of a lonely kid who was underestimated by everyone around him. I think of a man whose greatest strength was never his powers but his compassion. And when I think of all those things, I think of Tobey Maguire. So with great power and great debate comes great responsibility. And today, I intend to prove why Tobey Maguire is and always will be the greatest Spider-Man.
Very well said, Stephen. I think you've done your due diligence in this court. Last time didn't go very well for you as you were sentenced to uh, being away, but very well said. I'm glad that you said that. Next, we will go with Alex. Alex, can you please tell us why Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man?
Yes, sir, I can do that. So, Your Honor, members of the jury, today I'm going to prove that Tom Holland is the greatest live action Spider Man of all time, not just Peter Parker. This is not a case against Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield, but Tobey gave us, of course, the original Spider Man. Andrew did a cool couple things with his charisma and action. But the question isn't about, who came first. It's about who embodies Spider Man the best. So I think that Tom Holland is the most complete version of the character. He captures both Peter Parker and Spider Man better than anyone else. He feels like the teenage genius from the comics, balancing school, friendships, responsibility of a hero. And most importantly, I think Tom Holland has the most growth throughout his on-screen, tenure. He captures. Oh, sorry. He starts as a teenager, chasing approval, and kind of just ends as a hero, defined by his own responsibility. And so I think by the end, he learns that Spider-Man isn't just about joining the Avengers, getting a little recognition, having a little fun, but it's about doing the right thing, even when nobody knows your name. So I think that's what Spider-Man is all about, and I'm gonna deliver a little bit further on why I think that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you. And for future reference, do not apologize in this courtroom. I will be doing the apologizing to all of you all because I don't know if there will be a winner, and I apologize with this. Next up, I'm very interested to hear this person's take. Bruce, can you please defend Shamik Moore as Miles Morales as the best Spider-Man?
First and foremost, welcome to the pod, guys. But I want to start by saying something that we all know, familiar with Spider-Man. It's his trope. It doesn't matter which iteration. This is his thing, right? With great power comes great responsibility. We know that whether it's Aunt May or Uncle Ben, whichever, regardless of who delivers that message, somebody does. However, Miles's version comes with a caveat, right? And I think that's why it's important that he is the best Spider-Man. And this caveat is simply anyone can wear the mask. And that's a bold statement made because he is the one and only true original Spider-Man. And I don't mean that to take away from the others. I just mean he is the only of his kind. All the other ones are Peter Parker iterations with the expectation, with the example of him being one of one. So that's my argument.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you so much for that. Wow, great opening. And finally, Chase, you have Andrew Garfield. Please let us know why he is the best Spider-Man.
Yes. So, today the defense asks you to set aside nostalgia, box office numbers, and personal preference. This case is not about which Spider-Man arrived first or which Spider-Man was part of the Avengers. It's about which Spider-Man was the most successful. And what I mean by this is which Spider-Man depicted the comic accurate version in his movies regarding how good his movies actually were. Now, the defense will show that Andrew Garfield captured every aspect that makes the character beloved across generations. He brought Spider-Man's signature humor to life, delivering the wit and quick thinking attitude fans have known from the comics for decades. He portrayed Peter Parker as a young man struggling with loss, responsibility, self-doubt, making him feel deeply human and relatable. We will present evidence that Garfield delivered some of the most emotional moments we have ever seen in a Spider-Man story, and not just in his own movies, but in Tom Holland's movies as well. And I can even go further by including that in the Spider-Verse movies, Across the Spider-Verse. We'll show how this relationship feels genuine, how the physical performance made by Spider-Man really comes out of the comic book page. And now, years after his final solo, audiences are still rallying behind him for a third and final movie to his trilogy. Prosecution may point to a greater popularity or greater commercial success elsewhere, but the popularity alone does not determine greatness. Greatness is measured by how complete an actor understands and embodies this character. And by conclusion of this trial, after examining the facts and the evidence, we're confident here that Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man.
Very well said. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, gentlemen, for your opening statements. I am honestly wowed by all four of you. This is going to be a tough case to crack. And again, there is no losers in this case. I want everyone to know that. At the opening, I did say that the jury is not me. I do not make this this statement. I'm not going to say who is the best here. That is for our audience to decide. And what I mean by that is if you are listening to this on YouTube, are you listening to this on Spotify? Hey, are you even listening to this because of Facebook? Wherever you're seeing this, comment down below with what you think and who you think the best Spider-Man is. And that is how we will find out who's the best, who can wear the mask, the best, I should say, because to Bruce's point, everyone can wear the mask. So, gentlemen, does anyone have any questions for everyone out there? I know that, like I said, they're very strong introductions, very strong statements here. Does anybody want to kick it off?
I think I can go.
Okay.
I think I got it. All right. So, I think I'm gonna go here at Tobey Maguire, the original, right? The first one. So I think the thing we have to talk about is, does legacy play too much of a factor into why people think he is the best? Because I think Toby taught us that, with great power comes great responsibility, but I think Tom Holland understood it. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's a fair statement. And I will say with any sort of, conversation of any character, whether it's any actor who's played Spider-Man or any actor who's played any other heroes, nostalgia and like that whole legacy feeling does come into it. It's a big part of it. Personally, for me, when it comes to Tobey Maguire, I think the root is Peter Parker, obviously, when you think of Spider-Man. And I think when he showed out in the first movie, I mean, he did come off as like that awkward, clumsy, kind of out of the social cue kind of person. He was bullied. And I think he displays that and captures that perfectly. And when he does, get his powers and wears the suit, you can see the difference. The the contrast is there where he is confident as Spider-Man, and I think that parallel is what makes him great. So I think legacies, as much as that does play a factor, I think there are some things in the role still and in those movies that are still, you can take those away and it'll still be great.
All right, we'll allow it.
We'll allow it.
Fair.
Okay. So when I think of Tobey Maguire, I think of actually. Let me just pour this out to the 3 live action ones. And Bruce, this is no, in disdain of Miles, because he is great in his own way. But with the 3 live action of Tobey, Andrew, and Tom, I kind of debate this as if anybody has basketball knowledge, or ball knowledge, as the kids would like to say these days. I kind of look at this as the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James debate. You have the Michael Jordan, which to me would be I'm sorry, Tobey Maguire. Then you have the Kobe Bryant, which would be Andrew Garfield, and then you get on into the later years, LeBron James being Tom Holland. I'm not saying, you get what I'm saying, those right, gentlemen. Like you understand that. That's the way that I kind of see this. Now with Miles coming into it, you can throw in one of these young cats here, and call him, the, I don't know, the SGA, or the, Anthony Edwards, or the Victor Wembanyama. You can call him anything you want because he's young and he still has that youngish vibe to him. So, with that being said, Steven, I do have a question for you, along with Alex and Chase. When you look at it, are y'all defending because it's your favorite, or are you defending because you honestly believe in your heart of heart that this is the definitive best Spider-Man?
With that,
I would, yeah, I was gonna say I'd love for Chase to take this first here because I've spoken a lot already.
yeah. Now, I'll be honest, Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man, but I wouldn't say Andrew Garfield is much further off that top list. I think that kind of what you were going about, I think that Andrew Garfield does a great job portraying Spider-Man, but his movies don't give him justice, and that's why people will overlook him. Now, Tom Holland, he's had the box office, he's had the Avengers, he's now going on his 7th movie in the MCU, I believe, with Spider-Man Brand New Day. So there's more exposure there. Tobey Maguire did lay the framework and the foundation of the live-action Spider-Man character. However, his movies, I believe on a rewatch, they are a little bit outdated. For instance, the comedy in Spider-Man 3 is very poor. Some of the acting is a bit bland, and some of the pacing is a bit shallow. Now, that doesn't mean that doesn't pertain to Andrew Garfield's movies. Just goes to show that sometimes we let outside factors influence our decision. And I'm talking solely on the character portrayal by the actor, that Andrew Garfield did the job he was supposed to do.
Okay. Alex, what say you?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, and why I truly believe he's the best Spider-Man, is because he's also the best Peter Parker, which gives him that overall type of feel. I think you can definitely argue that for Andrew, a lot of the critics against him were for his Peter Parker, and his Peter Parker at the end of the day was it's all right. He was the cool guy, kind of doing whatever he wanted. I do think that Toby, solid Peter Parker, right? But then when you talk about Spider-Man, was he the best? Obviously, at the time, was he doing his own stunts? I don't know. This is on the set, but Tom is, he's doing all his own stuff. I think he's able to truly embody kind of that whole actual Spider-Man thing, kind of on screen and off screen, and I think it just gives him an edge. And then also against, Miles, I think Miles is definitely one of the most inspiring versions of Spider-Man. But at the end of the day, all of Miles' stories right now, he's still becoming like the true version of Spider-Man. I don't think we've gotten that kind of pinnacle yet, so I don't know if we can put him up there. And so yeah, I just think Tom has it all. That's it.
Very well said. Very well said. Does anybody else have any questions for the other gentleman in the room?
I have Your Honor. Uh,
Yes.
I do want to hear more of the defense of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 3 and the shenanigans that was. Do we even consider it a fair Spider-Man movie? And then if I could please have the Andrew Garfield defender step up after that and explain how all his movies were even paled in comparisons to Tobey Maguire's third movie. So kick it off first.
Wow. Very strong questions from the Miles defendant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and coming for both, people here,
Oh yeah.
to go up and answer your question regarding Spider-Man 3. Now, is Spider-Man 3 one of the better Spider-Man movies? Probably not. There's a lot of Spider-Man movies out there that also aren't as great. But I will say, being the Spider-Man that got to
Shots
complete a
fired.
trilogy, yes, sir. Being a Spider-Man that got to complete a trilogy, I will say that when it comes down to that final movie, behind the scenes there was a lot going on with script rewrites, but down to the actual movie itself, with Spider-Man being Spider-Man, you see that he has to come to terms that his friend, is obviously not who he thought he is anymore, and there's that
Mm.
personal relationship, and there's that personal, like, trauma that he has to deal with, especially at the end of the movie. So and also with Sandman, I think when you have another grounded character like that who is played very well, will I say the movie's the best? No. But is it overall a solid Spider-Man movie? I would argue so, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-mm-mm.
Chase, would you like to uh, go off of the latter part of that question that
Yeah.
Bruce
I
said?
will. I will state why I believe the TASM movies are better than Spider-Man 3 in general. Now, we're looking at Peter Parker. It's obviously a big part of Spider-Man. We don't get Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3. We get a goofy dancing version of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, which fair.
Shots fired back,
Maybe
baby.
at the time, maybe at the time it was funny, but it's become such a big meme that they put it in the Spider-Verse movies in the opening montage of Peter Parker of that universe. Um, Not only is Andrew Garfield Spider-Man um, more comic accurate, not necessarily even just comic accurate, just I'd say more engaging than Spider-Man 3's portrayal. The romance with Gwen Stacy, I believe, is better. That's obviously one of the big takeaways from the TASM movies. And personally, when I watch Spider-Man 3, I don't care for that Gwen Stacy. She's really just there as a challenger to MJ. And let's be real, I would say most people aren't the biggest fan of MJ in the Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movies. And finally, I would say that it is a more grounded story. And I don't believe that necessarily means grounded is better, but I believe, like you said earlier, with the rewrites and the need to force in certain characters like Venom, it ultimately takes away from some of the movie, which does affect Spider Man 3.
Very fair.
Mm.
Fair, fair, fair.
Good argument.
So I do have a question to Alex on defending Tom Holland. Um, to be complete honest with you, the other two Spider-Men over here, and you can throw in Miles, they did not have the luxury of being around for the Avengers, and they did not have the luxury of having box office domination with two movies. I'm speaking of Infinity War and Endgame. Do you think that would help or hurt your client?
Mm, mm.
I think at the end of the day, it would just do nothing but help. Yeah, because if you're not the strongest of the, best of the four here, you need a little help. So I do think that just in general, I think for a long time, right, people wanted to see Spider-Man interact, in a world that was just not bigger than him, but a part of him. And I think, yeah, being within the MCU and kind of having the luxury to, you know, talk with a Tony Stark, be with Hulk, Doctor Strange, like they aren't the whole part of the movie. Like for example, I think Iron Man only has like 5 minutes or something of screen time in that Homecoming movie, and people act like it's the end of the world and he takes up the whole amount of it. But I just think it's a cool little aspect. I think one of the best Spider-Man scenes ever on live action is the introduction in Civil War. Right? I mean, that whole entire scene kind of just embodies it, and I think it was cool to like just see Peter Parker play off of meeting an Iron Man and kind of looking up to him, and ultimately, he loses him, right? And he kind of I think by the end of the trilogy, it was not about just like looking up and kind of trying to kind of be a hero. I think he truly like learns in the end, like how much you really have to lose to kind of do your intended, I guess, destiny. You can call it destiny or fate. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it would definitely help the other ones because I think it helped Tom, but not to the degree of taking over, just being a part of it.
Fair, fair, fair. My next question goes to Bruce. Miles has been a fan favorite for a while now, especially in the animated universe out there. A lot of people are hoping and clamoring to the fact that we need to see live action Miles. Um, do you believe that we need a live action Miles at this moment, or do you think that Shamik Moore's Miles needs to run its course before we see Miles Morales in live action?
That's a good question, Yana. Honestly, that's one that I'm really conflicted on as well. I think, would it be better to see it run its course so that there's no conflict between the iterations, kind of in the same argument we're having about Spider-Man's, Peter Parker's? I do think that that would save face, especially for Sony, right? I think that would save them their luxury of having such a good franchise with, the Spider-Verse movies. So bringing him to real life action would I think that would take away from that. We don't want that. We want it to be added to that. I only think that, of course, he's going to be in Tom Holland's universe at that point, if that's the case. And while I wanted to kind of defecate, if you will, on Tom Holland being kind of the rich kid of the three, right? Being the fact that he has all the supplemental makings of greatness because he has all these different characters to surround him with, right? He's got the Iron Mans, he's got everything. So he's kind of spoiled, if you will. But I think in that same argument, I would have to say the same for Miles. Once he enters in the real live action, he's going to get a lot of that support from his Tom Holland Spider-Man and everybody that supported him through that course as well. So we get that hand down. So, we benefit from it. So I think, just back to your question, I would definitely say finish out the Into the Spider-Verse movies. Give us something good on the finale of that kind of ties in our expectations for real life Spider-Man. And just kind of segue from that into Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I think that's what we need. I think we need a good transition. And if Sony is smart, they would use that transition to build the momentum for whatever else they have in mind with Spider-Man. Or just give it up. That's all I gotta say. Or just give
Fair.
up the rights and let Marvel take care of this from here on out. But that's my argument.
Bruce, you have a great segue for myself. And this is a question for all four defendants. I know I'm throwing out a haymaker here. I'm going to name something. I'm going to name a couple of things, and I want you all to tell me what is the similarity. The Sam Raimi trilogy, which is Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3. The Amazing
Okay.
Spider-Man, which is The Amazing Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And MCU Tom Holland. I'm not going to go through all those because that is a lot.
Long
What
list.
what similarity do all of these have? And actually, the Spider-Verse animated movie series. What is the similarity? I'll give you time to think about it. I've given you
Can you
time.
I would love to go first.
Oh, go ahead. Maybe your answer is different than mine. But Chase, did you have
I
something
would
that you
say,
wanted? Well, I think. Sorry to cut you off, Stephen.
oh no, please.
Chase, did you have something that you wanted to say?
yeah. Can you go over the movies again for Tobey Maguire and Andrew Parker's I keep saying Andrew Parker, Andrew Garfield's?
Yes. It is the Sam Raimi trilogy, which is Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, and
Okay.
then Andrew Garfield's is the Amazing Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Gotcha. We're doing all of them. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, Stephen, go ahead.
So the one thing that I would say with all three live action Spider-Man that we've seen that all have something in common, and this is probably going to be a hot take, is that all three have some of the best homemade suits we have seen in Spider-Man media. I love especially Andrew Garfield's homemade suit. I love the Tims. I think that's really cool, especially like the sunglasses. I think with Tom's you have like I think they were camera lenses for, the eyepiece, and then you obviously have, the old wrestling one, which maybe it's because I'm a wrestling fan that I stick with that homemade suit with Toby. But I think all three of them share that in similarity where they're very creative and they're all different. You never see the same one. And that's what I believe.
Okay, okay. That was not
Yana,
my
I want
answer,
to
but
jump in here real quick, Yana.
yes, yes.
I see that our Steven here left out Miles's wonderful child Spider-Man costume that he
But
bought
it wasn't
and then
homemade, sir.
spray painted. But he altered it so that it was. And then he added his own flair with the shorts, the Jordans, and the hoodie. So
Your Honor,
in some
relevancy.
respects. Hmm.
Overruled. Overruled. That wasn't my answer, Steven. But it was a good one. I did like it. And I want all four of you to go around and tell me your thoughts on this. Uh, the answer I was looking for was the fact that you all are pretty much owned by Sony.
Woo. Okay,
That
that
sucks.
sounded like
Pretty much.
That
plantation talk there, Yada. Plantation talk, Yada.
but Sony will not let unless there is a handshaken, whatever agreement between them and Marvel Studios. I mean, why do you think we don't have a Beyond the Spider-Verse yet? Why do you think we don't have an Andrew Garfield third movie in what was supposed to be a trilogy? Why do you think that all these other iterations of Spider-Man or the villains from Spider-Man, do I need to even go into that? I don't think I should, but I will if I have to. Alex,
That's fine.
I did see your hand being raised, sir.
Yes. I did just want to point out that Tom Holland Spider-Man is the only collaborative Spider-Man out of the four. All right. So the other three completely owned by Sony. If you guys don't know, the Marvel Spider-Man, which, yes, Sony at the end of the day kind of has a little bit of final say for the most part, and they have distribution, but they do not have full creative control. So they have parts of it. So one thing is that Sony is actually who wants a MCU character always to appear in the movies. But at the end of the day, the MCU, Marvel specifically, obviously does pretty much most of the creative control with their director choice and everything else that goes along with it. So I think that's an important part to kind of throw in there.
But to piggyback off of that, Alex, would you think that is almost a negative side to that? Because if Sony is saying we have to have an MCU character in these movies, you look at Tobey Maguire's trilogy, not an MCU character. Obviously, the MCU wasn't really around, or it wasn't big enough to have a MCU character in there. I get it. Same with Andrew Garfield, I understand. However, when you do hear some of the negatives about Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, oh, they did have to bring in Iron Man. Or, and I'm not even saying this is a negative because we haven't even seen the movie, but Brand New Day does have Hulk and the Punisher in it. Do you think this gets a little muddled within the movies? Do you think that this is almost a negative towards Tom Holland and his greatness as Spider-Man because he has to have someone else there with him? And I'm not saying he has to have them there to carry the load or, piggyback off of that character. I'm just saying if Sony would just let Marvel say, "Hey, do what you want and we'll just get a little, a little cash, from him," I think that would be more beneficial. Because if you're being honest, and we're all sitting here, Tobey Maguire had the best part of his trilogy because we got to see a Green Goblin. Just a Green Goblin. We got to see just a Doc Ock. We got to see just these characters in there. I'm not going to talk about the third one. Andrew Garfield, we got to see just, I guess, somewhat of a hobgoblin. And we got to see somewhat of a lizard. Like, those are Spider-Man characters. But with Sony and Marvel in a collaborative agreement, Tom Holland has to have an Iron Man, has to have a Hulk, a Punisher. There we go.
Yana, that's for Alex only, or could we just kind of?
I would like to hear. I would like to hear what Alex
Okay.
says. If you have any questions afterwards, you may ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
chime
think
in after Alex goes.
I think that's a good, it's a good point, I guess, for the most part. But I think kind of something that I mentioned and what we talked about previously is, I think if you ask almost anyone, maybe not Toby fans, just because of how dead set they are on. He's honestly, Toby is. I guess that's just Spider-Man fans in general. Spider-Man fans kind of want to watch the same thing over and over again. All right, and at least the diehard ones, got to see Uncle Ben die, right, for the 15th time. You got to hear the line. You got to hear the line. It's got to be the same line. All right, and at the end of the day, he wants no help. Got to be poor. All right, that's fine, and I agree with that. I think you obviously got to stick to the comics, but I think with Tom, I think it just adds a different element where you see it from a kid's perspective, right? Because I think I think you can argue, even though, yes, like Toby's in high school, Andrew's in high school, they feel older than Tom, and Tom kind of grew into the role with it. And I think that was kind of the coolest aspect. And you kind of see like the actor and also the character kind of grow up from a kid, to I mean, he's a man now, he's like 30 almost. But I think that was the coolest part. And so aside from all of that, like, yes, there's like different, throughout all of these, there's all four on-screen movies. There's like different suits, different universes, different stories. But I think eventually Spider-Man kind of learns the same lesson in all of them, that, it's not about the power. It is about your kind of just, not about the power and the loss, but just kind of choosing to run with your fate, and kind of use that fate as your responsibility in a way, right? And I don't think just because we see Happy Hogan in Homecoming, because, right, I don't think there's any other MCU heroes in that movie. Just because we see Happy Hogan, I don't think it takes away from what the actual story is at the end of the day. So I think that's kind of my whole take on that.
Okay. That's a good point.
Let me.
That is
Can
a good
I?
point.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
Yana, even though Shamik Moore, Miles Morales is my pick today, I do have to say my favorite real life Spider-Man to this point, until we get one, would have to be Tom Holland's. And in defense of Tom Holland's, real quick, is the fact that people always say he needed that support from other people. Here's the biggest thing about that. And again, going back to my point where I think it's going to support Miles when he comes into the franchise, and that's that a bigger sandbox. While people are seeing the negative perspective of it, there's also that positive perspective where we're getting a larger sandbox. There's so much more components to play with here. I mean, heck, we got iterations of Blade that we can toy around with. You got Deadpool out there that could come into any one of these sequences, and we're seeing that as if it's a negative, and that's actually a positive. Now back to defending Miles and Shamik Moore real quick in respects to that as well. I think the best thing that Amy Pascal did was kind of hold on to Spider-Man so that the Spider-Verse had such a success, right? And they proved it with Shamik Moore having, similar to Tom Holland, other versions of that Spider-Man that we see in the cinematic universe into the Spider-Verse. And we still see that they even give Miles his nod of approval, their nod of approval and success. And at one point or another, he actually bests all of them when he's jetting past them, trying to save himself. He completely blew them all out of the way. Any iteration you want, Bagman, whatever. That's why he stands to be the best next to Tom Holland. And when he comes into the MCU, he's gonna conquer and he'll be the best. I know it won't be Shamik Moore because he's a way older. I don't see him playing that role. However, it'll be a great piggyback, and anybody can play that.
Okay. So I do have a question for Chase. It's honestly a shame that Andrew Garfield did not get a trilogy. Do you honestly, in your heart of heart, in this courtroom today, do you believe that hurts your defendant? Do you think not having a trilogy makes people look at him saying, well, he's definitely not the best because he only got two? How do you, what would you say to that?
I think that's a valid criticism. I understand why fans may look at him and think, oh, he got two movies. That's why he's not the best. Toby got a trilogy, and he would have gotten a fourth if it wasn't for disagreements at Sony. And Tom,
Sony issues. Sorry.
Tom, he got his
Sustained.
trilogy. He's been in Endgame, Infinity War, and Civil War, and now he's getting potentially his second trilogy, so his fourth solo movie. I think it does affect Andrew Garfield, but that's because fans will look at that and say that's his fault. You know, I feel like if you look at the casual fan, they may not understand all the issues that are going behind closed doors with Marvel and Sony. Now, if you just look at Andrew as a solo character, you put him in Toby's movies or Tom's movies, I think he does a great job, and I think that conversation about him being the best Spider-Man is significantly different. So I understand why people are hesitant to call him the best because he only has two movies, but that's something that is out of his grasp. That's not something that he can control. If it was up to Andrew Garfield, he would have had a third movie.
Fair. Now, this question is going to all four of you. Steven, I want to start with you. If you took Tobey Maguire out of his universe and replaced him with Tom Holland, do the fans still enjoy this version of Spider-Man that we have right now? Do you think it's the same? Do you think it's different? Or do you think, I mean, what are your thoughts?
I mean that's a great question, and obviously, these movies are made at totally different times. So I think if you take that young high school kid, or even what was it, like late middle school, early high school, Tom Holland Spider Man, and throw him right into Spider Man 1, I mean, it's with how crazy Norman Osborn is, Green Goblin is, I think it's roughly still the same movie. I don't think that maybe Green Goblin dies in the movie or anything like that, because Tom Holland's Spider Man was very against, like, I would say people just dying on his watch. But it's one of those things where I think at the end of the movie, I think it still continues, and I think it would probably stay the same, because at the end of the day, Spider Man is Spider Man, and he has his rule. So that's what I believe.
Okay. Bruce, I'm going to throw it over to you. If you could take Miles Morales, let's just hypothetically say this is live action, and plug him into either, Tom's world, Andrew world, or Toby's world, do those movies become better? Do they stay the same? Or do they get worse?
I think we first have to answer the question of who would play the part, right? I think that's the difficult part of this, because a lot of the questions here are geared towards the actor playing the role. And in this, we can't get a live action without having the actor. And again, Shamik Moore doesn't have the ability to. Let me not say he doesn't have the ability. He's just way too older to play a young Miles coming into that role. So I would say, if I had to choose a character first, I would go with the most, I guess, popular name that's being thrown out there, and that's Lonnie Chavez, right? I think he has the great chance of being a real life Miles um, in the MCU. And so I would think, to your question, if I had Lonnie playing Miles, would these movies be better? I would say yes, right? I think his take on the Venom suit, the symbiote suit in 3, would certainly be 10 times better. I think I think even with the goofy, weird characters that we see for villains, or the rogues gallery in Spider-Man, um, with Andrew Garfield. And remember, never forget that Andrew Garfield was the werewolf. That Miles would definitely be a way better version of it. And I think he would be a better match for for those villains. And to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I think, yeah, wouldn't that have been fun, with seeing him um, fighting Thanos, right? Or you know what I mean? Just standing there next to some of the more cool, like Black Panther. Think about that. Miles standing next to Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman. That would be a beautiful homage to such a great spirit that
Objection,
Chadwick Boseman.
relevance. This is
Oh
just talking
shit.
about the Spider Man movies, not the greater overall. Come on.
Sustained.
So,
Sustained.
all right, all right,
Okay.
all
All
right. So
right. All
that's
right.
I closed my argument there.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Chase, if you plug Andrew Garfield in any of these other roles or into the other movies, same role, same Spider Man. What say you?
Well, you look at Andrew Garfield, he was supposed to be the MCU Spider-Man. The only reason why he was not, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may have this wrong. The only reason why he's not is because he only had 2 movies and they didn't do as well at the box office. Nothing against his acting in general, correct?
I believe that is correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Andrew Garfield was supposed to be the Spider-Man if it wasn't for his box office movies. Now, fast forward to Spider-Man No Way Home. Part of the reason why Spider-Man No Way Home was as good and as entertaining and as hyped as it was is because we knew Andrew Garfield and Tobey were coming into it. And I'll even go a step further. They showed Andrew Garfield first before Tobey. And I think everyone can agree that had everyone going crazy at the theater. Now, when Tobey came, it was still amazing, but I would say some of the hype wasn't all there. First seeing Andrew, that is what really did it for people. And then, not to mention, he kind of takes over in some of the film. Once in that part, and then we can go to the second part where he saves MJ. That is probably one of the biggest takeaways from these movies, and part of it is because of how well he is as an actor, how well he portrays Spider-Man. So I believe if you just look at those two pieces, as well as his movies not performing as well as they should have, I think when you look at that, you put him in the same scenarios as Tom or Toby or Miles. It really just shows levels to his acting and how he really could have been in these movies. He's just a victim of the public not enjoying his movies nearly as much. So
I will let me interject real quick. I will say, growing up with all three of these Spider-Man, as I did, and Bruce, maybe you can you know elaborate a little bit on this, or you can agree with me on this. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man came way too quickly. He should have waited. Sony should have waited after Tobey Maguire ended and that third Spider-Man. We were supposed to get a fourth. Everyone was hyped around the fourth. Everyone was doing YouTube videos about the fourth, and then they didn't do a fourth. Toby split away, and then like within the next couple of years, it was Andrew. I've always been a big believer in this courtroom in this room right here and in real life. I have always been a big believer that you need time for these characters to rest. The Fantastic Four did not get a good movie until 10 years after the original, or even more than 10 years, I should say. We're not talking about the Fantastic. The X-Men, we haven't seen them in the theaters in a while. We are about to get them in the next couple of years. I do believe, and whether this is helping you out, Chase, I do believe that what hurt Andrew was the fact that they almost rushed his Spider-Man. That is my opinion.
Yeah, I gotta interject and agree with the judge on this. I think, I'm the OG in this debate forum here tonight, nearly being 50 years old myself. And so I had the ability or the great opportunity of seeing all of these versions of Spider-Man as an adult, right? And I gotta tell you, when they announced Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, I was excited for it. However, JT, the judge tonight, is not wrong in the fact that it was rushed. And I think it was Sony's way of trying to do two things. One, get a cash grab right away, right? Because let's be honest, Sony was they were falling apart a little bit, so they needed something to help bring them back. And then two, it was smart. It was poor timing, but smart to think that they were going to do so at the time where Iron Man and the MCU started to gain some momentum and build success. So they needed to find their way to get that that momentum for themselves. However, could we then blame it on Andrew Garfield? I think the defense today is about Andrew Garfield, and I don't think that he felt rushed. I think the movie felt rushed. So I can't indict him on that. I can't indict him on that crime.
That's fair. That's fair. Chase, you did make a good point in your defense about, in No Way Home, how Andrew was introduced first and then Toby was after. Steven, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, or do you agree with him?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree with him, but I would, if the court would allow me. I would like to revisit a quick point made earlier by Bruce here.
Absolutely.
This is going to be a 1 and 2 parter here. One for Alex, and the last part of the question is going to be for Bruce. So, Alex, I respect everything you've said about Tom and this whole different universe that he's in. Obviously, with a different setting comes a different story. Completely reasonable. Now, which of Tom's villains were created because of Tony Stark rather than Peter Parker? in this universe.
Mm.
And secondly, to question Bruce on the point afterwards, Bruce, you did mention here that Alex's client, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, was spoiled in the fact that he has gadgets and he has things given to him by Tony Stark. I would also argue that Miles is spoiled as well here in the Spider-Verse movies, because after Peter Parker does die and they go to Aunt May's house, they go into that like spider dungeon that he had, and he got a new suit from Peter Parker's vault, and he eventually had a team surrounding him that did help him. So I would argue that Miles is also spoiled, not in technology, but the things that he was surrounded with.
Alex, you want to go
Friendship.
first, or should I jump in there?
I'll just say something real quick, and then you can go. The one thing I want to say is, if because there's a lot of talk these past few minutes. I had to listen, unfortunately, but number one, there was a lot of talk about Sony failures, right? And there's only one Spider-Man that has the other half of it, kind of keeping them in line. So that's one thing I'll just kind of throw out there. And the second thing is, if Sandbox bad, then why does everyone want their Spider-Man and to get cool gadgets, right? Why does Tom Holland's Spider-Man always need to show up in New York? When there's any New York project, right? Thunderbolts, Daredevil, Hawkeye. Man, what else?
Fantastic.
I can
Four.
keep going, but everyone wants Tom Holland Spider-Man showing up in these. So if the Sandbox is truly that bad and that, against Tom Holland Spider-Man, then I don't know. I think we got to go with what the people want, and the people they want a nice little sandbox to play in. And the
Allow
last
me to
thing I'll say,
rephrase.
objection.
Objection.
Overruled.
I got one sentence here.
Go ahead.
Civil War didn't make Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man enhanced Civil War, and I think that's the relationship of what we have with the MCU right now.
Whoa.
Ooh, that's a big statement right there, Alex.
Whoa.
Holy moly. Okay.
I would love to rephrase for you, Alex, if I could, Judge JT.
You may.
Sandbox is never a bad thing, and I do apologize if that was what had come across from my point. My only point was which of Tom's villains were because of Tony Stark rather than Peter Parker himself.
Yeah, fair. I think Tony gets involved a little bit, obviously, but that's kind of the beauty, in a way, of
Mhm.
being in that world, right? You can argue, yes, Tony led to some of the villains, but I think it's more of I think you can look at it from a different perspective and just kind of talk about how like Spider-Man's reacting to the world around him, right?
Mhm.
Like, yes, is Vulture is more mad at, I don't know if it's actually at Tony directly, right? It's more about just like technology and kind of powerful people just becoming more rich and kind of leaving the little
Yeah.
guy behind. So I think with Vulture, yeah, obviously he's in the movie, and I think people kind of equate that to it. But I wouldn't say that one. Mysterio, I think, on the other hand, is, yes, Mysterio is kind of a he's a product of Tony and kind of what happened to him later, and he kind of ends up taking it out on Peter because he gets involved with the glasses and stuff. But I will say that is kind of the cool thing about the Homecoming movie, or that trilogy in general, is that movie kind of set the standard for, okay, yes, you can deal with all these other things surrounding you in the sandbox, but you didn't become the sandbox. Still your own character. Kind of were able to grow from it, and now he's his own character fully. In this fourth movie that we're about to get. So,
Like to
it was a new take. It was a new take, and I think it was respectable.
No, I
I like to
appreciate that,
debate
Alex.
that.
Thank you.
Go
I
ahead.
like to debate that about Tom being his own character in this movie. Now, we talked about it earlier with Sony having an agreement with Marvel that they have to include one Avenger, which is now Hulk, and we also have the Punisher. So not necessarily an Avenger, just an MCU character. And we kind of said this earlier. It kind of does dilute the character, maybe it does dilute the character. Now, if Hulk is involved, is this going to affect Tom's Spider-Man in this movie? You know, how many times have we seen Hulk be portrayed as the bad guy and then have to be sidelined? We've seen this with Thor in the Avenger movies. We've seen this with Hulk a few times. Is this going to take away from Tom's Spider-Man? Because then that also brings up some power scaling issues, I believe, which you could argue that it does benefit Tom, but I don't know. I feel like it's just not true to the character. And then when
No
you
doubt.
start moving away from what's true to the character, then it does affect the storytelling as a whole.
I wanna
Wow.
I
Wow.
wanna defend, Your Honor, the statements made by Stephen earlier. In counter of that, we do have to recognize that while Stephen is right, the difference in that situation, to give it context, is that one thing that I said in the very beginning in my opening statement is that the mask can be worn by anyone. It's who's in that mask, which is Miles. And we have to think about, is this the first time we see Miles or Spider-Man variation fight an entire multiverse or Spider-Verse, if you will, of Spider-Man, including one of the main antagonists, which is Miguel O'Hara, which I got to backtrack on one thing I made earlier was the statement of Miles being, one of one. Obviously, Miguel O'Hara is one of one as well. But that being the case, his major antagonist is a very strong Spider-Man and runs his own spider society, if you will. And so while you're facing all these other villains in the Spider-Man universe, all Peter Parker's rogue gallery, you're also fighting Spider-Man. Can't get better than that.
Okay. Okay. So, my final question to all four of you gentlemen before we end this courtroom case, the people versus Spider Man. When it comes down to the movies themselves, and it comes down to which Spider Man is the best, would you all agree that it is just a fantastic time to be a Spider-Man fan?
100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. No
I know I
argument.
am defending Andrew, but to get a Spider-Man in a full universe with other characters that we have seen him interact with in the comics, that is obviously very, very exciting. Whether it's the Hulk, Punisher, we're seeing Scorpion come back from Homecoming, which I believe that was released 10 years ago. Um,
Almost, yeah. Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. We've seen him interact with some other characters, and I think the likelihood at the end of this movie is going to lead into. Now, it's rumored that Tom isn't in Doomsday, but it is looking. I don't think they would have Secret Wars without him, and the idea of Tom wearing the Venom suit in Secret Wars and having that go into potentially his second movie of this trilogy, so his fifth movie, would be wildly interesting. So 100% yes, it is a great time to be a Spider-Man fan, whether you like one Spider-Man or the other. Yeah, I'm just super excited to see what they do with Tom's new movie and potential new trilogy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I said that was the last question, but uh, depending on when this episode gets released, the second trailer for Spider-Man: Brand New Day is releasing as of this recording in 2 days on Wednesday, June 17th. Tickets do go on sale. My wallet and my bank will be broken because of how many tickets I have to buy. Thank you to all my friends out there. Um, how do we feel about we talked about this on our sister podcast, Pass Us Over Screen, a little bit, but out of excitement level, I know that my cohorts over here, Steven and Bruce, and myself, all gave it a 5 out of 5 for the excitement level. Chase, Alex, what are your excitement levels for Spider-Man Brand New Day?
You go first, Alex.
I do just have one quick question. Are we doing closing statements?
Right?
After
Or
this
we
one,
even-
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
after
it.
this. After this. I
Got it.
just want to get the judge has to get the last, the
Yeah,
last say.
I feel that. Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of once again talking about the GOAT coming up on his 4th movie. um, I'm super excited. I think a lot of people are though in the
Wow.
Spider-Man community, because I think Brand New Day is kind of given a mix of I think what everyone wants in a Spider-Man movie, whether you like whether you like Tom's trilogy and like him being a part of the MCU, or if you kind of just like the more Tobey and Andrew kind of route. And I think for Miles too, I think Miles is more of like that first trilogy, so we're not really there yet with his story. But I think Miles is going to he's going to be a part of this trilogy, whether by the end of it. So I think it's going to give everything overall, and then I think just for this movie in general, like we're kind of seeing, just a mix of everything. That kind of old school, or not old school, but the classic like Peter having his own apartment, kind of getting it from the mud and everything. I think it's gonna be a really cool blend of everything. So I'll give it
out of 5.
5. I mean, it was the most watched trailer, right?
Yeah, it was.
Close to all time or something.
Yeah.
And the fact that people are just trying to leak everything is crazy. I probably
It is
gotta
crazy.
go. I gotta go 5.
Sony issue.
It's Sony issue. Oh, yeah, another Sony
Yeah.
issue. But yeah, I think 5 out of 5 for sure, and it's the first one in 5 years. Which, ironically, have we seen Spider-Man on screen since then?
No.
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 Right?
Mm-mm.
Which is crazy. So if you really think about it, this is even a further gap than the Tobey ending trilogy to Andrew's
Yeah.
first, which is kind of nuts. So yeah, I think people are super ready.
Yeah.
Um,
Chase.
Yeah, I kind of just want to go off that. I remember after watching No Way Home, Hawkeye came out. It was coming out at the same time. I was so convinced Spider-Man was going to come flying in during the finale, because where he was going on his final swing to the final battle in Hawkeye, I was like, oh my god, they're actually going to have him involved in the MCU. But no, it's not happening because it's Sony. But if you ask me going into 2026, my most anticipated movies, I think Brand New Day was in my top 5. I was definitely looking forward to it, like top 5 most anticipated movies. But I think after that trailer, I was like, wow, like we're getting Daniel Creston. What's Daniel Creston? What
Daniel Destin Craig.
Right?
Destin
Daniel?
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, Daniel.
Or
Yeah.
Jesus, I'm tripping now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting him. He did such a great job with Shang-Chi. We're getting those fight scenes in a Spider-Man movie. And when that first trailer came out, I remember seeing the shot of inside his mask while he jumps off the tower. Dude, that got me super excited. And there's seeing some other shots. I saw people complaining about the color grading. Personally, I don't think that was an issue at all. It's a bit
It's
darker,
fixed, by the way.
but I think it also, I think it also has some identity with it being a bit darker. Obviously, this is Peter Parker at his lowest. That's what the movie is marketed as, and it, like you said, they're still, when they release it, there's still like 7 months until the trailer releases, so they're still working on some stuff. But
Right.
I would probably say I am at a 4.5 out of 5 excitement. Say maybe
Okay.
going into the year like 4.
Okay.
I usually try to stay away from trailers besides the first one, but I'm sure as the release date gets closer, I'll definitely get more and more excited. I think that's just how it is. So ask
Yeah.
me in a month from now, and I'm sure it'll be a 5.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm just glad we're getting the new director.
This is
Yeah,
true.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a
Yeah.
Spider-Man movie. So what am I saying? I'm a 5 out of 5.
There we go. There we go.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a quick switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Converted him.
Yeah. Nah,
But
that's
to
good.
Alex, to Alex's point, yes, gentlemen, closing statements as we end this court case. And remember, I have no say in who wins this. That is not my job tonight. That is for the audience. So viewers out there, listen to these closing statements. Listen to everything that you've heard on this podcast. Make your decision by that, or just make your decision by your heart, whatever your heart of heart tells you. Steven, you're up.
I have been writing my closing statement while you guys were talking about your excitement levels. And here I go. Gentlemen, before I rest my case, let the record show that this court has nothing but respect for every hero who has worn the mask. Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man. Tom Holland is Spider-Man. Miles Morales is Spider-Man. Each of them has inspired fans and brought something unique to this character. But this case was never about tearing one Spider-Man down or to lift another one up. But when I think of sacrifice, responsibility, perseverance, and the heart of Peter Parker, I always arrive at the same conclusion. Not because he was first, and not because of nostalgia, but because he embodied the soul of Spider-Man. To me, and beyond a reasonable doubt, Tobey Maguire will always be Spider-Man, and the best Spider-Man. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Steven. Bruce, you are up.
I mean, there's so much to talk about here. Let's start with the fact that you get a Gwen Stacy, who is voiced by Haley Steinfeld, who later on we see in the MCU, who does a phenomenal job, by the way, in that very TV show you mentioned, Hawkeye. Beyond the point that I made that he is his own Spider-Man as well, he also deals with inclusion. He's very essence of this Spider-Man is the proof that you can take people from any background and you can make them just as super and have representation. I mean, you had Doc Ock as a woman. You had his uncle as the Prowler, which was a villain. You have him being half Puerto Rican and being from Brooklyn. I mean, so these are things that are very specific and unique. While we get Spider-Man, Peter Parker from Queens, this kid is from Brooklyn, and I have that personal biasness, all right? The other thing that comes out in this is that think about the Into the Spider-Verse and the fact that you have Kingpin in there as one of the major villains. You've got Spot, who was amazing, by the way, and a great play on it. But how about Amazon's recent release of Spider-Man, which we left out of this argument, and that's Spider-Noir, which comes and had his big moment in Into the Spider-Verse. So there you launch a franchise from this. I mean, so here, Peter Parker showed the world what Spider-Man could be. Miles Morales showed the world that Spider-Man could be anyone. That's why Miles Morales isn't the best because he's next Spider-Man. He's the best because he provided Spider-Man a bigger than any one personality. That's my argument.
Very nice. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Alex,
Your Honor.
you're up.
So, yeah, I think just for a final statement here, the greatest proof isn't in the box office numbers, although we do got that. It's not really in the fight scenes, although you can argue we got that also in No Way Home. And then fan polls too, is he the most popular? We got that also. So I think, I think the audience has reacted to this character in a really, really strong way. Whether a movie or show is set in New York, as I said, fans kind of ask the same thing. They don't ask if Spider-Man should be in New York. They're asking why Tom Holland isn't there, right? Everyone's referring to Tom Holland Spider-Man. And that's because I think just Tom is the best overall Spider-Man of this generation. Peter Parker and Spider-Man combined, because there are two aspects to it for sure. And I think he's the best hero in his own movies, even with other heroes there. Because, fans expect him to be a part of that world. And even though they are in there, they don't take over it, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think, Tobey gave us a legend. Garfield gave us some great moments, especially that opening swing scene that is kind of the Spider-Man standard now going forward for swing scenes. And I think Miles gave us a great new perspective, but I think Tom gave us the most complete version of the character. And so, for those reasons, Tom's the greatest. I'm out.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. And Chase, close this out,
Yeah.
good sir,
So-
with your final statement.
At the beginning of this trial, we asked a simple question: who truly captured the spirit of Spider-Man? And the defense has shown that Andrew Garfield brought a unique combination of humor, emotion, charisma, and humanity to this role. He made audiences believe that Peter Parker's struggles and triumphs, you truly feel the weight of every loss. Now, we saw Spider-Man who was nonstop cracking jokes in the face of danger. We saw Peter Parker who felt real, flawed, and relatable. And we also witnessed a love story that made us truly invested in the character that has left an impact on generations. But perhaps the strongest piece of the evidence came years later. Now, after The Amazing Spider-Man 2, many believed the story was over, the franchise was gone, and we would no longer see his Spider-Man. But the future he was promised never arrived. His Spider-Man was left behind while Spider-Man moved on. Yet, much like the New York Knicks, written off for years and counted out by nearly everyone, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man refused to stay down and rose from the ashes. When he returned in Spider-Man No Way Home, he didn't just make a cameo. He reminded the world why fans had never stopped believing in him. He turned years of disappointment into redemption, years of criticism into appreciation, and years of what could have been into proof of what always was. And this is why people want Sony to finish his trilogy. Andrew Garfield didn't just play Spider-Man. He got knocked down, counted out, and came back stronger. And this is why the defense asked for a verdict in his favor. That Andrew Garfield is guilty of being the greatest Spider-Man.
Very well said, Chase. Very well said by all four of you gentlemen. And again, the jury has a tough decision on their hands. I cannot wait to see what everyone has to say. But we're going to wrap this up like a normal podcast. Chase, Alex, thank you guys so much for participating in the court case 616, The People versus Spider-Man. Where can we follow you guys at? Because I know you mentioned earlier, Chase, that y'all had a wonderful interview, and I have loved every single bit of that interview. I think I've watched it like 3 or 4 times, honestly. But y'all, whoever wants to go, tell us where we can find y'all and
Yeah,
and what's
Alex,
the
if
best
you
way
want,
to
I can speak
connect?
about the TikTok, and then you can speak about the YouTube.
Yeah, that works.
So, yeah, so they are the same handle, but obviously TikTok we post daily. So really, what is most prominent in that moment? So, been doing a lot of Star Wars lately. You know, with Mando and Grogu, we did a lot of Obsession, and sure with Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon season 3. I'm sure I'm going to dive into that a lot. So, a lot of daily content, and really just try to have a full scope of everything that is going on in the moment, but also adding a unique brand of our own, which is the SempShow. So you can find us on TikTok at the SempShow for daily content, as well as several live streams every week. So I'll hand it over to Alex.
Yeah, and then just on the other side, just like the longer form content stuff is on YouTube. So you can follow us there at the Sem Show. JT knows I was doing a lot of Marvel stuff, and I still am. I have a video coming out that I think people will like, about like 15, 20 minutes long, on the end of the Avengers in the MCU. Which is interesting. So I'll leave it as a little tease, working on it. But
I'm
yeah,
excited for that.
that's our. Appreciate it. Yeah, I can send you guys the link. But yeah, I think, and then the one thing for us too that I think we focus on now is like just collabing, you know, with guys like you, which is it's really fun, and I think it just kind of opens up your, it kind of not changes your opinion, but you get to just see everyone's different sides of everything, like how we did it today. So yeah, it's really cool, and thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for being on, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, this will do it for this this court case. I'm not going to say it's adjourned because it's still open. It's not open and shut, it's still open. So listeners, please go out and vote in the comments down below wherever you are listening to this. But from Steven and Bruce, I'm JT. This is the Quantum Couch, and we will see you next time.
Steven, JT, Bruce, take a seat, take a seat, take a seat. Welcome to the Quantum Couch. Steven, JT, Bruce, take a seat, take a seat.